Prem Kumar. So as we discussed in the last class, so fluorometry theory. So now today we are going to discuss fluorometry, in that instrumentation and application. The instrumentation having some components, in that source of light, filters and monochromators, sample cells and detectors. So this is the schematic diagram of fluorometry. So fluorometer is used to determine the fluorescence of compounds are known and unknown. So here this instrument consists source of light, monochromators, sample holders, detectors and amplifier. So coming to first one, source of light. So various sources are used to give the radiation as UV are visible. So in that foremost we use mercury vapor lamp as a major. So mercury vapor at high pressure gives intense lines on continuous background above 350 nanometers. Low pressure mercury vapor gives an additional line at 254 nanometers. So it is used in filter fluorimeter. The basic source of light for the fluorescence is mercury vapor lamp. So the construction of vapor lamp should be given in the following picture. So it should have some glass tube where the mercury is going to be placed. When you apply some pressure, so then the mercury vapors gives some intense lines, so that may be used as a source. Second one, a xenon arc, similar to the mercury vapor lamp. It gives more intense radiation than mercury vapor lamp. It is majorly used in spectrophlorimeter. The third one, tungsten lamp. If excitation has to be done in visible region, then this can be used. It is used in low cost instruments. So first two lamps, mercury vapor lamp and xenon arc lamp, they may be used for both excitation in a visible region as well as UV region. Then second one, filters and monochromators. In that first one is filters. These are nothing but optical filters which works on the principle of absorption of unwanted light and transmitting the required wavelength of light. Generally, in inexpensive instruments, fluorimeter having primary filters as well as secondary filters. So primary filters, in this it should be absorbs visible radiation, whereas it transmits UV radiation. So coming to secondary filters, which absorbs UV radiation and transmits visible radiation. Then in monochromators, we have two types of monochromators. One is excitation monochromator and then emission monochromator. The monochromators, they convert polychromatic light into monochromatic light. In polychromatic light, we have different wavelengths of lines which we don't require. These monochromators converts that polychromatic light to a specific wavelength light which we desire. They can isolate a specific range of wavelengths or a particular wavelength of radiation from a source. Here excitation monochromators which provides suitable radiation for the excitation of molecules, whereas emission monochromators isolate only the radiation emitted by the fluorescent molecule. Then sample cells. So these are meant for holding liquid samples. Generally these are made up of quartz and can have various shapes like cylindrical or rectangular. So in the figure I just give the shape of rectangular. So these sample cells having two surfaces, which is one is having a rough surface and one is smooth surface. The rough surface is used to handle the sample cell by the hand, whereas the smooth surface, which is used to transmit the light and which is allowed to pass the light from the. Then fourth one, detectors. Okay, so here generally photometric detectors are used. There are majorly two types. One is barrier layer cell. It can be also called as photovoltaic cell. The second one is photomultiplied cells. Coming to first one, barrier layer or photovoltaic cell. Generally, it is employed in expensive instruments. It consists of a copper plate coated with thin layer of cuprous oxide. So here, so this is the arrangement of barrier layer. So here we have silver layer, selenium layer and iron base. Generally, silver and irons both are act as a electrodes. A semi-transparent film of silver is laid on this plate to provide good contact. When external light falls on the oxide layer, the electrons emitted from the oxide layer moves into the copper plate. Then this oxide layer becomes positive and copper plate become negative. Then second one is photomultiplied tube. Generally these are incorporated in expensive instruments like spectrophotometer. Its sensitivity is high due to measuring weak intensity of light. The major principle employed in this detector is that the multiplication of photoelectrons by secondary emissions of electrons. This is achieved by using photocathode and a series of anodes. The series of anode we can call as diodes. Generally, up to 10 diodes are used. Each diode is maintained at 7 to 100 volts higher than the preceding one. Generally, photomultiplied tubes can detect very weak signals compared to the barrier layer cells, even 200 times weaker than that could be done using photovoltaic cell. Hence, it is useful in fluorescence measurement. So PMT should be shielded from the stray light in order to have accurate result. So this is the construction of photomultiplied tube. So here we have photocathode. So this is a source to collect the light or photons from the sample, and it should be moved from here. These are diodes which may act as a cathode. By using focusing electrode, the electrons should be moved towards anodes, so where we can get secondary electrons. So these secondary electrons get multiplied to reach the anode, so where we have connector anodes. So from this, so the sample get converted into the electrical signals, and the readout device should be measured the spectrum of desired compounds. So here we have types of instruments. So there majorly single beam filter fluorimeters, double beam filter fluorimeters, and finally the spectrophlorimeters, which is advanced than single and double beam. So coming to single beam fluorimeters, so generally it contains a tungsten lamp as a source of light and has an optical system consist of a primary filter. Generally tungsten lamp we can use in inexpensive instruments and where the emission takes place in the visible region. The emitted radiation is measured at 900 nanometer by using secondary filters and detectors. Generally, primary filters absorbs visible radiation and transmits UV radiation, which excites the molecules present in the sample cells. So here, the primary filter majorly absorbs visible radiation. Why? Because this tungsten lamp should give only visible range radiation. Instead of 90, if we use 180 geometry as in colorimeter secondary filter has to be highly efficient, otherwise both the unabsorbed UV radiation and fluorescent radiation will produce detector response and gives a false result. To avoid that one, so generally we use only 90 geometry. So why? Because in this only one filters may be active. If you use secondary filter, there we may get false result and we cannot get proper accurate determination. So single beam instruments are simply in construction and cheaper and easy to operate. So it should contains simple arrangement like it should have source and have monochromator, then sample cells, finally detector, and then second double beam fluorimeter. In a single beam fluorimeter, we have only one filter and which is used for at a time. So we can use only one cuvette like either sample cells or reference cells. Whereas in double beam, we can use two different filters and we can use two different sample beams. It is similar to single beam except that two incident beams from a single light source pass through the primary filters separately and fall on the another reference solution. Then the emitted radiation from the sample or reference sample pass separately through the secondary filter and produce response combinedly on a detector. So to split the light, we use mirrors to separate the two beams, and each beams contains some different cuvettes and also some spectrometer lens, so which act as a secondary filter. So finally, third one, spectrofluorimeter. So it is having a double beams. In this primary filter in double beam fluorimeter is replaced by excitation monochromators and second filter is replaced by emission monochromator. So it is an advanced spectrophotometer. So nowadays we are using this type of spectrometers for the determination of fluorescence of different samples. So incident beam is split into this sample and reference beam by using beam splitters. So in this, here we have one is excitation monochromator and here emission types monochromator. So from the source of light, so the light should be processed through the excitation monochromator where the excitation of electrons takes place. So those excited electrons should move to the emission monochromators. So where we have some choppers which divide the lights, and finally after the emission the light should be passed to the photomultiplier which acts as a detector, and there we get proper response for the determination. And coming to applications of fluorimetry. So generally fluorimetry is used to determine inorganic substances like aluminum, lithium, zinc, and also it is used in the determination of thiamine hydrochloride, determination of phenotiones, and also determination of some indoles, phenols and phenothiazines, and also it can be used in the determination of naphthals, proteins and plant pigments and some steroids. Nowadays, fluorimetry can be used in the detection of impurities in nanogram level better than absorbance spectrophotometers, with special emphasis in determining components of sample at the end of chromatographic or capillary column. Then it also used to determine ruthenium ions in presence of other platinum metals. Determination of boron in steel, aluminum in alloys. So magnesium in steels also done by fluorimetry. Determination of boron in steel by complex formed with benzoin also determined, and estimation of cadmium with 2,2-hydroxyphenyl benzoxazole in presence of tartarate. And then respiratory tract inspections also identified by using fluorimetry. So this is a table which gives some information about the compounds. So from which wavelength, so we are going to be identified their fluorescent intensity. So adrenaline, we can determine this at a pH 1. Generally, the emission wavelength of adrenaline is 335 nanometers, like cyanocobalamin, morphine. So these two are, we can identify these two in the neutral pH. So where cyanocobalamin having emission wavelength 305, whereas morphine having 350, but both these two are determined in neutral pH. So hydrocortisone and riboflavin, so we can estimate these two in acidic conditions, whereas riboflavin we can identify weak acidic conditions, whereas in hydrocortisone having a more acidic in nature, the pH. But both are identified at emission wavelength of 520. Then phenobarbital, amylobarbital, these two drugs are we can identify by using basic pH, strong basic pH, and having emission wavelength different, phenobarbital at 440 nanometers, as well as amylobarbital identified at 410 nanometers. So apart from these 7, so adrenaline we can estimate this in highly acidic conditions. So this for today class. In next class we are going to discuss nephroturbidometry in that theory and some introduction of nephroturbidometry. Thank you.